Hello, welcome to Dundrell's podcast. I'm your host, Justin. So today I was supposed to review the Moon Knight episode 1, the new Marvel cinematic TV show. But today I also watched the new Sony Marvel Comics movie, Morbius. So instead of doing like two videos, I decided, since hey, they were both requested by the same guy, Nuke, I'm just gonna do it in the same video. So I'll do Morbius first, and then I'll talk about Moon Knight, which people are already bashing this movie, saying it's like the worst Marvel film. Boy, these Zoomers, man, like uh, these Zoomers, man, like they don't know. They're very hyperbolic, man. Like, have you guys ever heard of Howard the Duck and especially those old crappy like 80s and 90s like TV Marvel films, like the Doctor Strange and like the Thor one and the Albert Pune like Captain America. So, in my opinion, this is not the worst Marvel film, but I am kind of wondering what was the point of this film. Which, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The movie is directed by David Espinosa. Never heard of this director. He did movies like Life 2017, Child 44, Safe House 2012. Never seen any of these movies, right? Apparently he's a Swedish film director. I would have, with a name like David Espinosa, I would not have like guessed you were Swedish, my guy. The film stars Jared Leto as the vampire Morbius. You have Matt Smith, who plays Jared Leto's character's best friend, Lucian, also known as Milo in the movie. I think that's why, like, people were saying, like, Matt Smith's like, I don't even know my character's name in the movie. Like, they changed it, like, halfway through. I don't know what the deal with that was, but who knows? So, like, he's from, like, Doctor Who, if people don't know who he is. You got Adria Arjona in the film, and you have Jared Harris, and a special cameo by Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes. Spoiler alert, you probably already heard about this, but Adrian Toomes shows up at the end of the movie to sequel bait for whatever reason. So, like, the movie is, if you've seen the trailer, you've pretty much seen the whole movie. Like, and by the way, I just want to say that I've never read any comics with Morbius. I've only ever heard of this scene of this character and seen of this character in the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, where I can't remember if he was a real vampire in that either, but like, yeah, he had like a fang with Black Cat. That's like the only thing I remember about his character. That, and he was butt ugly as fuck. Here, like, he's only ugly. He's only ugly in his vampire form, right? So, like, the movie's about, like, Jared Leto plays Michael Morbius, a guy with, like, this condition where he's, like, basically he's a cripple for life, and he could die at any moment. He had this condition since he was a kid. He grew up in this, like, sick kids, like, hospital facility where he meets, like, Matt Smith's character, Lucian, who he names Milo because he had a friend named Milo, I guess, and because the kids kept dying, he just kept calling his, like, the bunk mates or whatever, the kid that slept in the bed next to him, Milo, right? And Jared Harris was like the doctor who like took care of these kids, right? And he kind of after like Milo almost dies from his like life support machine like failing on him. Michael fixes it, right? And after that point, Jared Harris tells him, "Hey, you need to become a doctor," right? So he becomes a doctor, and he grows up 35 years, 25 years later, whatever, and goes to Costa Rica and captures some bats, and gets the brilliant idea, which the movie they didn't really explain it too well, like why he wanted to do this, but like he wanted to cure his condition and people like him. He wanted to combine bat DNA with human DNA, and he does it, and he accidentally turns into a vampire, and like he did this to himself in like this cargo ship in the middle like in international waters, even though it was like like 13 miles off Long Island. I guess that's international waters. And he kills all the mercenaries on board except for his girlfriend, right? And the FBI shows up. You got Tyrese Gibson from the Fast and Furious movies, and he has like a partner named Rodriguez, who at first didn't care apparently that Michael Morbius killed the mercenaries, but when one of his when like Michael Morbius' nurse dies, he wants to. They want to arrest him now for murder. Apparently, the 8 mercenaries he killed, they didn't give a crap, right? Which is like, what? That was so dumb. So I don't want to spoil the whole movie, but basically, you know, it turns out his friend, the movie reminds me of a lot of movies. It kind of reminds me of Amazing Spider-Man 2, even though I've never watched Amazing Spider-Man 2. I've seen like Spoonie's review where he pretty much spoiled the whole movie. But it's like, yeah, it's the thing where like his friend who's like, finds him in his laboratory, like starving of blood, right? Because that's a subplot in the movie that he invented like basically true blood, synthetic blood that's blue, but he can't live off it, right, for long. So like there's a thing where like, oh, the blue. What are you gonna do when you run out of the blue blood, Michael? Are you gonna kill yourself, right? So like, yeah, Matt Smith's character finds the serum and like injects himself with it, turns into a vampire, and he becomes basically like the villain of the movie, right? And Matt Smith, I think, did a good job with in his role. He was pretty he was like a charismatic, you know, villain. And like you could see like somebody like that who like kind of grew up like with the sword of Damocles over his head, saying like, which that's a metaphor, thinking like, no, I had to live with like death over my head. Why shouldn't other people like experience my suffering or whatever? So he just goes full like, you know, he just goes full like, you know, chaotic or whatever. Chaotic evil and like killing people, right? So it's only Michael Morbius can stop him, right? So if you're not here's the thing: the movie suffers from like superhero origin story syndromes. Like a bunch of movies like dedicated to like exploring the powers, exploring the powers. They don't really give enough time. Which the movie's like an hour, like 40 minutes or whatever. They don't really give enough time to like, you know, flesh out the characters, right? It just goes into like, you know, exploring their powers and stuff, and you just get like, if you're not a fan of like CGI fight scenes, that's pretty much that's the only action scenes the movie has is CGI action scenes, right? Which they do kind of look cool. Like their vampire forms were kind of their vampire faces were cool, but like, yeah, if you're not a fan of that, you're probably not gonna like this movie. And like the final fight, like he pulls like a Batman Year One or Batman Begins, where he like Michael Morbius, like, you know, gets slashed like across the midsection, gets injured, and he summons bats to help him. The bats like pick him up, and like Matt Smith's character Milo goes to finish him off, right, with a piece of metal or whatever, and he does like a fucking like what's it called, Kamehameha, like like the Goku's ultimate attack from Dragon Ball Z with bats, man. It even does like a similar like pose with with his hands, right? So it was like, what the fuck was that? Oh my god, right? So yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a decent film. I guess it's it's worth watching. I think at least once. But yeah, the violence in the movie is very tame. Uh, it's the thing where like this kind of doesn't, like, these Marvel movies now don't really feel like movies anymore. They just feel like episodic installments, and this movie very much feels like you're watching like a pilot for a TV show or something, man. Because there's no real villains, man. It's just like it's just circumstance that created the conflict in the movie, and then they introduce like Adrian Toomes, and it's like, what the fuck was the point of that? It's like with Marvel Marvel heard about like fucking DC bringing like Michael Keaton back to play Batman, so they're like, oh no, we want Michael Keaton to keep playing the Vulture. We want Michael Keaton in our movies too. It's like, what the fuck, man? What the fuck is Marvel thinking? And it's like, and they're obviously setting up this thing where they want like Morbius to team up with Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, to fight like Spider-Man. When Morbius is like a good guy in the movie. So it's like, what the fuck? What's with these anti-hero movies, man? Where they they take villains and then they make them into anti-heroes, but like at some point we're expecting to see these characters fight their nemesis, which is the superhero. So it's like, what the fuck? How are they gonna pull that off, man? It's so dumb. And it's like, what's the point of even having anti-hero movies when like, if you when superhero movies, like, the superheroes are pretty much anti-heroes. The only extinction between superheroes and comics and anti-heroes is anti-heroes can kill, right? But like in superhero movies, superheroes kill all the time, even in the Marvel fucking movies. So it's like, what the fuck, man? I don't know. So I also going to do a quick review for Moon Knight, which is the Oscar Isaac TV show where he plays Moon Knight, aka Stephen Grant, Mark Spector. I forget the other identities, but yeah, he plays basically this British like incel who works at a museum selling like he works basically the gift shop at an Egyptian museum, and his boss is a bitch, constantly talking down to him, even though he wants to be a tour guide because he's like an expert on Egyptian shit. And like, obviously, if you've seen the trailer, you know he's like, they're kind of doing like a Fight Club kind of thing, where like, he blackouts, right, and he finds himself in strange places. And like, Ethan Hawke is like the villain in the TV show, where he has this crazy cult. He worships like an evil Egyptian god and wants to kill people, right? Which is pretty that are bad. Which is kind of what like Moon Knight is, because he's like the vessel of vengeance or whatever for like his Egyptian god that he follows, right? And like, there's like a talking like golden scarab, right? He hears a voice in his head, and it's supposed to be, it sounded like Liam Neeson, but it's supposed to be F. Abraham or whatever. So I don't know, man. The guy from the 13 Ghosts remake, and he was in that Mozart movie, or not Mozart, Amadeus movie, right? So like, I really didn't like this show. Like, Oscar Isaac's like British accent is fucking cringe, man. It's a lot of mates and bloody and like a lot of like stereotypical British slang. Man, it's just so bad. Right, and I just don't buy him as a British guy. I don't. Right, and then like he looks. There's a scene where he's talking to himself in a mirror, and it's supposed to be Mark, and he's just using his regular American accent. Why did they make Stephen Grant like a British incel? It's like he was supposed to be like a millionaire, which I kind of hate. Like what they done to Moon Knight, because I read the original omnibus, and his different identities was just so he could gather intel. He was basically a spy, and like he would have different identities that he would use to gather information to figure out what the fuck criminals were up to, right? And then they changed it into like later on in the comics that he was crazy, he had multiple personality disorder. It was so fucking retarded, and they definitely didn't need that whole ancient Egyptian like bullshit either. He was I liked Moon Knight better when he was just like this mercenary guy who was given a costume to kill the werewolf by night, and then fell in love with the costume. Was like, you know what? I'm gonna be a superhero. Fuck this bullshit. Right? Because like he got superpowers from his fight with the werewolf, and like he, depending on the phase of the moon, he would be like strong or whatever, right? I kind of like that better. And the costume is it's like, I didn't notice it at first, but if you look closely at it, he looks like a mummy. Like there's like white wrapping and stuff, so like they made him look like a mummy. It's like, what the fuck? And they also have the other costume that's like the suit with the mask. That's from the Warren Ellis Moon Knight series, where he has like supernatural powers and stuff. I don't know, man. I'm just not into this shit. And like, I think Ethan Hawke did a good job as the villain. Right, but it's like, dude, like this show, like the one, like there's a scene where like Stephen Grant is being chased by this CGI monster, which people were comparing it to like the Mummy the Mummy movies from the 2000s with Brendan Fraser, and the CGI was on par with that shit. Which as a kid I loved the Mummy movies, but man, fuck. The Mummy movies actually had action. Right here, he switched places with Mark, and you just see the tail end of the fight where he's in the costume and he's finishing the monster off by punching it like over and over again, and then like that ends. So like so the one fight scene with the Moon Knight in his costume, they cut it. Man, they cut it, so it's like, what the fuck, man? I don't know, man. I might give episode 2 a chance, but I'm so far I'm not liking Moon Knight at all. And I forgot to give my rating for Morbius. It's like a 5 out of 10. Here, it's like I'm not. I just don't like the Moon Knight TV show. Yeah, and I forgot to mention in the Morbius review that a bunch of the lines from the trailer is in the movie, obviously, and it just feels out of place that they just wrote that for trailer lines. Because in the context of the movie, a lot of the trailer lines in the movie don't make sense. Like when he gets out of the helicopter and he's like, some guy's like, "Do you need a doctor?" It's like, "I am a doctor." In the context of the movie, it makes no sense because he's there to capture He's there to capture bats, and the guy knows he's there for bats or whatever. So it's like, what the fuck? Yeah, that shit makes no sense. So yeah, that's it for this review, guys. Peace.